Now, the family of the Zambian student Lemekhani Nyindera, who was killed while fighting Ukraine, has joined the government in demanding answers from Russia. Earlier this week, the country's foreign minister said the student was meant to be serving his jail sentence at the time of his death. It has now demanded an explanation from the Kremlin. For more on this developing story, I'm joined by Joan Chirwa, who's a journalist and human rights defender. She's also the founder of a Free Press Initiative in Zambia. Joan, thanks for your time today. Now, a lot of questions unanswered, but let's talk about what we know about Lemekhani. We understand that Lemekhani was imprisoned for a period of 9 years. His sentence was not up. The next thing that his family finds out is that he's been killed in enemy territory.
Yeah, that's really shocking news. As you can see, it's making headlines, not only in Zambia, but in your country as well and other countries in Southern Africa. This is something that really just came as a shock. And as you can see in the statement that came from the government, it was clear that there were a number of unanswered questions that the government had that obviously had answers on. But, you know, it's a pity that this is something that's, you know, being known now and something that is, especially when you look at the circumstances surrounding the death of the young man. He went to Russia as a student and unfortunately he found himself on the wrong side of the law and he had to get that sentence. But then at what point he found himself in the army, and not just in the army, but having to fight a war, a fierce war for that matter, is something that has left the government and his family quite shocked. And what they're looking for are answers. But again, these are some of the things that I was talking about just yesterday with respect to issues of human rights, you know. It would be interesting to know exactly what it is that he was offered, because obviously you cannot just get someone in such circumstances and then let them fight in a war. And the questions that I asked were, was he adequately prepared to fight in a war? Or it was just a matter of giving someone the basics in terms of handling a weapon and throwing them to the deep ends to fight a war that, you know, they never ever thought could be that close.
You
It was, you know, quite a while to prepare someone to be, you know, well equipped and fully knowledgeable about how to handle certain scenarios. But he was just a prisoner and picked up. But from what we gather, I think there was something that was offered in terms of his freedom after fighting. So if you come back alive, then this might see you getting out of jail.
Sorry, Joan, if you allow me to come in there, you raised something quite important, which is preparedness for war. Now, we know that Lemekhani was 23 years old. He'd gone to study engineering from what we understand. So he was in no way a soldier. But the information that seems to be coming through is that he was not recruited by the Russian army or the Ukraine army, but it was actually a mercenary group that recruited him. Now, obviously, that's still awaits confirmation. But talk to us about the mood in Zambia at the moment. Talk to us about his family. What has their reaction been?
It's a shock, but before I get into that, I have a bit of a problem, you know, believing the stories that he was recruited by a mercenary group because he was in the custody of the state. You know, prisons are highly regulated, quite regulated. Even just here in Zambia, it's really difficult to find a prisoner doing something outside of the realms of state. So it's really difficult. Now, when you look at a country like Russia, really, I find it really hard to just believe that there was nothing much that government played in this whole issue to see him out there and playing a part in the war. But like you mentioned, there are so many questions, and hopefully what we're looking forward to is getting adequate answers and also ensuring that the family does get satisfied with whatever comes out. But either way, a life has been lost, and a young life for that matter. Now, coming to your second question, could you help me remind me about the second question? Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a reaction from you, Joan, on the reaction in Zambia. What is the mood in Zambia at the moment? What is the reaction been from his family?
Oh yeah, no, from his family, of course, it's a shock, but it's shared grief because so many people expressed total regret and worry that some of those things could happen to somebody who left the country. In circumstances where you knew that they were going to study in Russia, and the details that came, of course, to the effect that he was working for a courier company, and I think it was in that process that he found himself getting caught up in what is alleged to have been a drug deal. So, regardless, really, I think when you get news of a death, you really don't tend to spend so much time talking about whatever negatives that could surround it. But you look at the loss that has to be borne by the family, but not just the family, their friends to talk about here, and just the whole country, because we believe in mourning with others, and that's really just been a Zambian culture, or maybe I can say an African culture. So when one is grieving, you tend to all rally behind them and, offer them whatever emotional and spiritual support that they can need during that time. So it's really been one of those big issues that have been discussed, not just in traditional media, but social media as well. It's been very heavy there, actually. And a lot of Zambians are also demanding those answers that I talk about. So it's not just the family itself. So regardless of the fact that you may not have had any connection with this gentleman, but, just getting such terrible news makes you to begin to think deeply about it and, join those that are also demanding for the same answers that everybody else is seeking from the Russian government.
Joan, we've run short of time, but very quickly, I will give you 30 seconds just to talk to us about, you're a human rights advocate. What human rights or what rights did Lemekhani have as a prisoner that would have been infringed by him ending up on the battlefront?
When we look at what has happened here, that's the right to life. Like I mentioned earlier, I think his going to that war should have been something that was clearly communicated, especially that he was serving, he did something. And when you look at the foreign relations here, I think it was something that really had to come to the attention of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Zambia here. Now, and I think that's really one of the major issues as well, where that, you could have gotten news that this person did this and they're serving, but then the next thing you hear is that they have died at a war, not because they just strayed there, but because they were fighting. So that's, Joan,
I'm afraid we've run short of time, and we're going to have to leave it there. Joan Chirwa speaking to us from Lusaka in Zambia. She's a journalist and human rights defender, having that conversation around Lemekhani Nyindera, the Zambian student who was in prison and found himself on the battlefront, where unfortunately he lost his life. Well,